David Livingstone. The first question in our biography portion of the interview is, where were you from?
Hey, I'm David Livingstone, and in 1813 I was born in Blantyre, Scotland.
All right, and for our next question, how was your childhood like?
Well, I grew up in a Scottish family with several siblings in a single tenement room, and I remember in 1823, I believe. Yeah, it was 1823. I was 10 years old, working long hours in the textile mills. We were a very poor family, and my parents were strict in Calvinistic faith. I was too, until my later life when my father and I joined an independent Christian congregation, which changed my view to more of a Christian view.
And were you ever married? And if so, to who?
Yeah, I was married. I had a lovely wife. Her name was Mary. Sadly, she passed away to malaria in 1862. She truly was the love of my life. She went on many mission trips with me. She was a kind, respectful person, but I could rest assured that she's happy to be in heaven where she is now.
And why did you want to become a missionary in the first place?
Well, I wanted to become a missionary since I was a young boy, when my father would read stories to me of Christian missionary journeys, and it really inspired me.
Also, did you have any role models growing up? Any mentors?
Yeah, I did have role models. My father would read writings of German missionary Karl Gutzlaff, who advised missionaries to become doctors so they could carry out their missionary work and convert people through serving others in medical needs. And I later took this advice to become a doctor as well as a missionary, two of the greatest decisions of my life.
And is it true that you really fought a lion? Could you elaborate on that?
Although I'm a bit embarrassed about it, when I reached the Kalahari country, I did fight a lion. Luckily, I survived the attack. My left arm was severely injured with teeth marks in my arm, and I couldn't hold my gun.
And if you were a missionary, what do you think you would do for a living?
I honestly couldn't imagine my life without missions, but if, in this scenario, if I was never in missions, I would probably be a doctor.
All right, and now for our second portion of the interview, talking about your contributions to missions. What are your greatest accomplishments?
Some of my greatest accomplishments are being the first European to cross the African continent, from the Zambezi River to the north, Angola, and then at the Atlantic. I also explored a big amount of Central and Southern Africa to make a path for missionaries. I also discovered Victoria Falls in 1885.
And how did God call you to be a missionary?
God called me to be a missionary from a very young age when I had the desire for missions. I believe God had wanted me to be a missionary from the very beginning so I could share His word with African people throughout my whole life.
For our next question, how has your accomplishments changed missions?
My exploration of Africa allowed for more missionaries to come to Africa and share the gospel themselves. I also showed the world that anyone from anywhere can be a missionary.
All right, and for the next question, if you could go back and do something differently, what would you do and why?
That's a tough one, but if I could go back, do something different. In my earlier ages, I was a thief, and it's hard to confess, but it's true. And I feel like if I could go back and not have done some of the things I've done, then that would truly change my life for the better.
All right, and did you enjoy being a missionary? Why or why not?
Yes, I love being a missionary because it allows me to help others get to know Christ as well as myself. Plus, I would do anything to glorify God, and this is one of the ways I could do it.
All right, and now for the third portion of the interview where we talk about your missions takeaways and what we can learn from your adventures. The first question here is going to be, what did you learn? What did you take away from evangelizing in Africa?
When I got to Africa, I was interested in learning about the religious and cultural beliefs of the people I met, but most importantly, I was there to share the gospel with them. I learned that I needed to know and understand the native African languages in order to better understand them. I also learned that it's helpful to provide images to help them understand the gospel better so they know what they're being told. And I did this through a magic lantern that I invented, and it slides through biblical stories. It's basically a visual that I showed them to help them understand.
For the next question, what can the viewers learn from your adventures?
The viewers watching can learn that when doing missions, it's important to be brave and not scared by non-Christian parts of the world. Because back when I went to Africa for missions, not many missionaries had ever gone to the heart of Africa because there were no maps, no roads. This meant that all the people in Central Africa had never heard of the gospel before. This is why I spent so much of my life there and mapping Southern Africa, so I could basically open up a pathway for future missionaries there.
And for the last question, if you could give any advice to future missionaries, what would it be?
If I could give any advice to future missionaries, it would probably be I'd tell them that missionary work is not easy, but it is so worth it. Sometimes you're going to encounter obstacles in your way, but if you trust in God, He will help you get through them, without a doubt.